life is very full, is what I say. And I also just want to make note, Jackie, I so appreciate the notes that you brought to the podium, and I wish I had my notes. I tried, like all week, to try to write something specific for today, and I couldn't. Like literally my brain would not allow me to focus that far ahead. Ever have that time where you've got so much going on, you can't even think? And that's a brain thing. Prefrontal cortex can't focus. So everything I'm doing right now is spontaneous, it's in the flow, even the music. Because honestly, right now, I don't know about you, but I am navigating some life situations that I never dreamed of. You know, it's like, what was I thinking to like co-create this? And then I'm like, okay, it's something, we're all learning, you know, what can be discovered? What is the balance to this? When we look at the word harmony, like creating harmony within and around us, harmony is really defined as the pleasant agreement of parts. Okay? Because like if we had this, that's a melody, that's just a single flow. But when we have 2 or 3 or 4, that's harmony because we have individual strings coming together in a pleasing arrangement. But sometimes life is like this, right? That's not very pleasing. It's kind of called noise. And that's how my brain feels sometimes because there's just so much happening at the same time. And you know, I've been on this spiritual path of self-discovery for years, like 20, 30 years. And I'm finding that my tools are changing. You know, what supported me years ago doesn't actually fit in the same way. Because I'm changing. The world is changing. And one of the interesting things that I've been doing the last several months, one is I'm going to therapy, which is great. Totally recommend that. Again, one of those things I never thought I would do. But I appreciate the support. Another is just something that I found fascinating. I'm just going to share it. I'm not promoting it or anything. I'm just going to give you my experience. But if you ever said something like, well, part of me wants to do this and part of me wants to do that. Part of me wants to do this and then the part of me over here is doing this. Right? And at some point, then there's a lot of bad parts that are like in conversation. It's like, wait a minute. Which one do I listen to? And why? Well, what I have found helpful, and it's relatively, I've heard about it a while ago, but I just dug into it. It's called internal family systems. And it is a therapeutic model that actually looks at the different parts, the internal family. I'm like, oh, that's really cool, because I've said for years, we're like harps with all of these individual strings representing different aspects of ourselves. And so I was using the word aspect for 20 years. But when I actually then shifted that perspective to like a different part of me, I developed a different relationship with myself and these different aspects of myself. And I'm finding more peace and harmony within myself. And I've been saying this phrase for years, compassion grows from within as we lovingly embrace all aspects of ourselves, meaning all of these low strings, these scary things that maybe we want to push down, and sometimes we just want to stay up here. And the high notes, you know, find your happy place, stay up here. Right? But the thing is, it's those low strings, it's that depth It's those experiences that feel scary, and we may not understand why or what it's all about, but they're still in us. We are all, like, I see everybody like a beautiful little harps. Not necessarily. And we all have these unique set of strings. And we're all unique anyway. Like, we have unique brains. Our brains are wired and tuned and pruned differently. Nobody thinks the same. Nobody has the same experiences. We are all so unique. And so nobody can tell you how to find that peace and harmony within you except you. And what I've been experiencing personally over the last even just couple months is that as I find and embrace and recognize these different parts of myself and build a relationship with that aspect of myself, see, hear, and understand it, allow it to speak to me, allow it to give me information. So I'm listening. It's deepening my listening. And I have found, like, my worried, anxious mother that inside of me is like 35 years old, and she got stuck there because that's when some tough stuff happened. And I found that little girl who watched her father cry at his father's funeral when I was 5 years old, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to comfort my dad. But that set a pattern for me of wanting to comfort others in a way that I didn't necessarily connect. And I'm finding that as I can breathe into these different parts in a loving way and listen, space is created. And we talk about, like, how old patterns get repeated. Well, that's a neurological thing, number one. Lisa Feldman Barrett is one of the top neuroscientists in the world. She has a wonderful book called 7.5 Lessons About the Brain, and it's literally proving how our brain is predictive. So it takes the sensorial input that our body is sending it, and it takes the environmental input, and it's saying, literally, figuratively, last time I felt this is what I did. This is how I felt. And it predicts what we do. So I read that and I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. Repetitive patterns of behavior. Okay, now I'm applying it to all of these little parts and aspects of myself. I'm like, oh, of course, they're just going to kick in and keep doing what they're doing. Because my brain is connected to that. And then I breathe and I open space and I allow them. I'm not going to get into the whole therapeutic aspect of it, but one of you did use the word burden initially. And that's one of the words that they use. Like, these parts get burdened with unnecessary responsibilities because they think that they have to. And then once you find them and you befriend them and they trust you, they can unburden. Because they took the burden on initially because they didn't trust. They didn't trust you or that big self we all have that divine self. And they didn't trust what was happening in the environment. So, like, I'll take care of you. So every single part has value. And the underlying value is to take care of us. And as we see them and befriend them and embrace them and include them as part of the fullness of who we are, then they can actually unburden, and then they can offer us their natural energy. And it opens, it's like clouds covering the sun. The clouds start to relax. And the sun, which is that divine self, it's always there. It just gets covered up. That divine self shines. And then we get to listen to that and become led by that. We follow that path and that guidance. And so that's a perspective that, you know, for 20 years I had it kind of, and then it deepened. And It's helping me now navigate these uncharted waters. It's helping me find that harmony within myself, that trust, that peace, that everything has purpose. Whatever my lessons are to learn, I'm learning them in a more peaceful, natural way. I don't feel as much fear. It was interesting, like in our minds, we can know things and we can recognize things, but then when we embody them, it's a totally different feeling. And I can honestly say that for most of my life, my choices were cored or motivated from a place of fear. That fear of survival. And I found that part inside of me that was helping me survive. And now that part is helping me thrive. Because we had a little talk, and I said, hey, you did your job. I survived. Thank you. Thank you. And now let's thrive. Let's have some fun. So I just share those moments of personal experience just as a reflection. And for me, the slowing down was key. Because my doingness was a protection. When I'm caught in doing, I'm resisting being. That was a life lesson back in my cancer journey 10 years ago. Again, 10 years ago, and now here is just taking it another level. It's connecting it a little deeper. So what I would love to offer today is a space to slow down. To just take a deep breath and allow whatever experience you want to have to happen. There's no right or wrong. You can fall asleep if you want. If you snore, somebody can nudge you a bit. But this is just time for you. Time for you to do whatever it is you're called to do within yourself. Because as we find this peace and harmony within ourselves, that naturally emanates around us. So I often bring tuning forks. I didn't today. But when you strike one tuning fork and the other one starts to resonate, it's the same frequency. So literally when we are living from that sense of our true, authentic, loving, divine self that emanates into the world, that frequency is going to sympathetically resonate within those around us. Because we all have that. And that's how it gets created out here. But it starts inside.